Now, welcome to our panel discussion with a space industry expert. And you know that space industry is undergoing rapid political, economic and technological change worldwide. And we want to talk about the future of the European space industry and space flight beyond Ariane 6 and Vega C. And what course Europe needs to set in order to start the commercialization in Europe.
This is at the core of my new strategy in ESA. I mentioned at the beginning a document called Agenda 2025. I will introduce it to the press, to the public in 1 week's time. And you will probably read about it. And it's really what I want to do. I would like to have an awareness in Europe of where Europe stands as a continent or as a collection of countries as compared to the United States, as compared to China and to other countries. And there, space has a very different value in terms of as a strategic asset of the countries, but also how much money they put in order to support activities. Just to mention that the public spending in the US is about 6 times more than in Europe. If you put all the space fundings together of ESA, European Commission and member states, and there Europe has a clear disadvantage. So therefore I really would like to raise this debate on where Europe, what Europe wants in space as an ambition to a higher level also in politicians to make Europe more of a space power, more of a space continent, and make space more important for European citizens, because there's so much to do and there's so much to gain. We have heard climate change, we have heard exploration, we have heard astronauts, we have heard so many aspects, and space is in so many domains so active, and I really would like to foster this and to bring this one level up. Maybe one last comment, if you allow me, on this point. It was Matthias Wachter who said before that ESA should act as an anchor tenant. Yes, I fully agree. And yes, that is what I plan to do. You will read it in this famous Agenda 2025. This is something we have to engage as well, in addition to our classical role in space. Well, you can not stop others. I think you have to be better in order to overtake them. And that is what RFA is promising, to come with a product that is, in terms of technology, but also in terms of price, very competitive. And then the market will decide. And this will certainly be an important aspect. But let me say one more thing, and this is sometimes forgotten in the discussion on launches and competitiveness and so on. Of course, you need technology that is good, you need a strong team, and all this is excellent. But do not forget that in the US, you have about 40 launches per year. In Europe, you have about 6-7 launches per year. That means you have a very different market, and therefore you can offer very different prices. And I think in addition to develop the companies that are producing launchers like RFA, we should also work on programs, I call them flagship programs for Europe, where we do need to launch satellites. We have Copernicus and Galileo today as the main flagship programs, which are producing some of the best technology in the world. In fact, here Europe has managed to be a world leader, both in Copernicus and also in Galileo. But we need new flagship programs. And I think this has to go hand in hand. On one side, investment on new satellites and constellations in particular. On the other side, technology that leads to new launches. And I see us as ESA to work on both fronts, or there are several other fronts as well, but at least in this context where we need to work to create this demand on one side and the answer on the other side.
I think that RFA has 2 advantages. One is the pre-combustion. Pre-combustion is highly advanced. It is very complicated, but I don't doubt that the engineers of RFA will do that. Having achieved that, they will have a very highly efficient engine. That's one point. And the other point is, and I think this is also very important, they have an upper stage, an orbital stage, they call it. And this is important because then they can launch different satellites in one launch going to different orbits. And this means they can put 3 or 4 satellites up into space and still put them in different orbits. This can be also only done with an orbital upper stage. And this is a big advantage. And they are saying that they can also sell this orbital stage to other rocket factories. So I think this is a big advantage, and this is why I believe in Rocket Factory Augsburg. So what we need to do is really to focus on making money with those satellites. And this is what RFA is really good about. They bring these small satellites, more satellites, in particular Earth observation satellites, remote sensing satellites, into space in low Earth orbits. This is really the key point in the future of space, I have to tell you. But there is another part, which is commercialization in parts of space tourism. So I think space tourism is very important for the reason that it cuts the prices, because the more people go into space and pay for it, the more rockets will fly into space, in particular in suborbital flights, and this lowers prices, and we need lower prices. In the past, all nations, all spacefaring nations had a kind of monopoly on what they did, and this is why the prices were high. And space tourism and these new startups, they cut prices, and this is what we need. This, of course, is a problem to ESA. I know that this is a problem to NASA and all these space nations, but I'm sure they will adapt to the market. So I'm looking forward for these new rockets, the new satellites, and the new space tourism.
Definitely, yeah. I also want to be a space tourist one day.
Prices are going down. So when they're about $10,000 per flight, I think we both should do that.
Definitely.
I think we need to link it to other non-space industries and show the importance space has for other industries, like autonomous driving and Internet of Things I mentioned before, because without having the space infrastructure and the space data available, these technologies on Earth won't work. So it's especially important to us as German industry, which is focused on manufacturing, to achieve this link. And I think what we also need to do is we need to look at the entire space value chain. We have the rockets, we have the satellites, we have the universities, but we also need to launch the rockets. And that's why we initiated the campaign for a German launch site in the North Sea. And when we did so, many people smiled and said, hey, are you kidding us? Yeah, how is that going to work? Is that possible, etc.? But we are now moving very, very concrete forward. And we have a private consortium set up which says we can do it, we can operate it. And I think having rockets like RFA-1 launching from a launch pad in the North Sea, I think that would change the entire perception of space in Germany, because at the moment we are very good in producing parts and components for space systems. We deliver them somewhere where they get assembled, and then they launch somewhere on this planet, but they don't launch here. You don't see it, you don't have this feeling, yeah. And I think this could contribute to making space not only a new space more successful, but also giving a totally different perception and how it is seen.
But far beyond the rockets themselves, we will see a boost of innovation, because rockets transport satellites to space, and we're talking low orbit launches here, so satellites that will be flying pretty close to Mother Earth. They will not be geostationary, but they will fly around very quickly around the Earth in huge constellations in many parts, and be very, very close compared to traditional satellites to the Earth's surface. So they will be able to monitor what we are doing on this surface of this planet very, very closely, enabling a whole new host of applications. I compare it maybe I don't think it's overdrawn to compare it to the invention of the smartphone. The smartphone itself is a very interesting product, but it's also a platform for a multitude of other products. And the same will be true for the micro launcher industry and the micro satellite industry. It will be a platform that will enable many, many other technologies which we can only dream about today. Some of them we can kind of guess where they will be, but many of them we will simply have to wait what the future brings. But it will be an enabling infrastructure. And this is what's so interesting. And this is why, last sentence on this one, why we shouldn't be too afraid of China running ahead or US or India. We should build our own industry, because Europe, to a certain degree, in this very important infrastructure field, should have its own autonomous systems and not rely on other regions in the world.
I think we have to understand that space, in new space, is not only about rockets, it's about the entire ecosystem. And rockets play a very important part in that. For example, there won't be any Internet of Things or autonomous driving without space and space applications. So space is really becoming extremely crucial for the entire German and European industry. And that's why we must move forward. And I think Rocket Factory, like Jörn and Stefan and the entire team presented us today, is on the right track to contribute to this significantly. And I have the impression that the public is getting more and more interested and excited about what's going on in space, in European space. And I think that's a very good development where we can build on, and we need to strengthen that. And I wish Rocket Factory all the best in moving into this direction.